Now we got a kind of a proof that the square root of 2 is irrational number, but the thing about this proof, it looks like amazing tricks that come out of magic, but the fact is the square root of 2 has to be an irrational number, because how could it be rational? It should be a lot easier to prove than this. And one way of looking at it is, if you wanted it to be a rational number, supposing it was a decimal, it's approximately 1.4 something, but let's say it came out even to be an exact decimal number. Then you should be able to write down 1.41 times 1.4142, and multiply them together, and it should come up 2.000. Let's see what it comes up to. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, 8, 2, 8, 2. There's going to be, what have I done? 4 decimal places. There's going to be 8 decimal places. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 4 is 16, etc. Well, you can see we're not going to get it to come out zeros, because when you add them all up, there's a 4 at the very end which doesn't have anything under it. So even if everything else did come up zeros, which it doesn't, but even if it did, you'd still have this 4 at the end that was uncompensated for. So let's, carry the expression farther if you want. Let it end in a 3 or a 5 or anything. But if you take all the numbers from 1 to 9 and square them, you'll find that none of them end in 0. So in decimal notation, at any rate, you're not going to get a square root of 2 that truncates. Now that doesn't prove it's not rational, because you might have something that repeats, like 237, 237, etc., repeating the same block after a certain random period of just meandering around. You could get into a repeating block. So this is no kind of proof. Partly I'm illustrating it on the air because it's a kind of quasi-proof that's no kind of proof that makes mathematicians just drives them nuts, like I was screeching my nails across the blackboard. So for the benefit of the purists out there, this sort of proves it. I mean, it pretty near proves it. But here's one that does prove it, really, truly, which is, if you said you had the square root of 2 written as a fraction in lowest terms, what does it mean to write a fraction in lowest terms? It means you got some big number like 3197 over 2259, and that these numbers, if it's reduced to a fraction in lowest terms, they got nothing in common. They got no prime factors in common. If you broke this down into its prime factors, it could be a prime number itself, or it could have prime factors like maybe it's got 3 times 5 squared times 11 times a bunch more stuff. And on the bottom, you could have stuff, you couldn't have a 3 on the bottom because you've already got a 3 on the top. And if you said there was a 3 on the bottom, then you would have canceled them both. So you can't have a 3 on the bottom. You could have, well, I don't have a 7 on top, so you could have a 7 on the bottom, and maybe 17 squared or whatever, and a bunch more stuff. But you got a fraction that's expressed in lowest terms. It means there's nothing in common on top or bottom. So what are you going to do when you square it? When you square it, you square the top and you square the bottom. It means all the exponents you have in this expression. If I've got 3 on top, I would have 3 squared. If I have 5 on top, I'd have 5 to the 4th, 11 squared, 7 squared, 17 to the 4th. It's still not going to cancel down. If you couldn't cancel it before, you can't cancel it now. And if you didn't have, if you want it to come up 2, you're not going to get 2, because 2 times a bunch of stuff squared over a bunch of stuff squared, where these things don't cancel, I mean, you're not going to get them to cancel by squaring them. If they didn't cancel already, then nothing's going to cancel out just by squaring them. And you're not going to get a 2 showing up from nowhere that you didn't have to begin with. So the square root of 2 has got to be irrational. Now, that looks like that just about wraps up our show for today.